I'd like to call to order our special, our city council meeting workshop of July 5th. Second item on the agenda is discussion and possible action regarding the fiscal year 2023 fund accounts. Leroy, I guess you're handling it.
I'd be glad to hand it off. I just wanted, this is the old budget format, and as you can see through this process, remember how to use this thing. On the 29th of June last year is when all the departments turned in their budget request. And then Kim and I normally did the revenue forecast in the middle of June. So we're right where normally we would be on July 7th is the first time I saw the full budget. Today's the first time I saw the full budget. And then we would normally go from there and we'd spend 3 days going through every department's budget and work with them to make refinements so that we could get down to more of a balanced budget. And so that when we come to city council, we had a balanced budget where we were close to revenues and expenditures matched. And then towards the end of July, we would have a team budget meeting with all the departments to make some final adjustments before it comes to city council. So in August 3rd is when we would typically have our first meeting with city council. We're about 30 days ahead of that schedule. Because we're skipping all the steps, all of my work that I typically do in July to get to a balanced budget. And the reason we're doing that is back in March, there was a special council meeting where the fire and EMS had a workshop with city council to talk about their call volume in relation to manpower. And they made a good case that they needed anywhere from 3 to 9 additional firefighters based on their call load. And the response from some of the council members were critical of city staff because the draft FY 2022 budget that presented to them did not reflect the full manpower needed by a fire EMS district. And so the response was, well, guys, if we knew that you need those people, we'd have funded them in FY 2022. But we just didn't know. So this year, you're going to know because we're giving you the raw document. We're not refining it. We're not visiting with the different departments and cutting it down to a balanced budget because we don't want you to be able to point to staff and say, well, we just didn't know. So this year, we didn't cut anything out. It's got the raw things come to. And outside the meeting, one councilman even suggested that not budgeting the required number of minimum staff was a tactic to get other items funded, and then we'd come back later and ask for staff. But there was plenty of money, but it was just a tactic that we use as staff. Well, let's get these things funded, and we don't put all our staff in there. And then we'll just come back later and ask for that. So we've adjusted this process accordingly. So now, on this process here, we are July 5th. That's when I'd start working on the budget. This year, we're bringing it to you just as it was presented from the department, without any refinement. Now, after you see it tonight, you can make the decision whether you want to have a series of special meetings and you go through all the budgets and adjust them and come up with a balanced budget, or do you want to go back to the old way and have staff spend July balancing the budgets? Either way is fine. There were 6 additional positions requested in the FY '23 budget. One in line maintenance, one in parks, one in street departments, and 3 in the fire department. That total cost is just under $300,000 with salary and benefits. I can tell you both of those department heads, they decided to go and limit themselves to 3 new positions in their department because they knew roughly or had an awareness of what our revenue constraints was. They could have asked for 9 to 12 positions each. And when they present their budgets to you, they will present those positions. They just didn't put them in the budget because they knew there wasn't enough money. But if you all decide to go through this process in this new format, when Tenny presents his budgets, he will present the additional positions that he needs, but he just knew there wasn't enough money in the budget. But if you find it, then you can fund them, and Eric will do the same thing in the fire department. So if you look at our sales tax revenue, we took some substantial strides in FY '22. We give the police and fire an 8% cost of living increase. In FY 2022, they had their step increases. We went to a minimum of $15 an hour and updated our pay scale for the non-bargaining positions. But we estimated 5% growth in sales tax revenue for '21. And it looks like our sales tax revenue will come in $81,000 more than what we budgeted for FY '22. So we're pretty close to estimating what we would get. If we do a 4% growth in over FY 2022, again for FY '23, instead of 7.8, it'll be 8.2, 396,000 additional funding. Of course, 80% goes to general fund and 20% of that goes to CIP. So you'll have 317,000 additional dollars for the FY '23 budget in sales tax revenue. 5%, you would have a little more, but looking at things, there's so many volatile things with inflation. Are we going to go into a recession? What's going to happen? So we're recommending that we look at a 4% growth for '23 over our projected or our expected revenue for 2022. So if you have roughly 317,000 additional dollars of sales tax revenue, that's more of a revenue increase for a stable, keep what you have budget revenue forecast. Because you got to, out of that 317,000, you got 2% cost of living, pay adjustment for all of the non-bargaining firefighters and police department. You have step increases. You have a 10 to 15% potential increase for health insurance. We got to deal with higher fuel and material cost and funding to add new positions. At least 6 have been proposed. That's a lot of things to pay with $300,000. Use tax, we over-projected. Our projection, the revenue fell short about $40,000. So we were good on sales tax, but we over-projected on use tax. So if use tax grows 4%, we projected a 10% growth in 2022, and it was more like 5.7. So if you do a 4%, by the time you make up where we over-projected, you would have about $3,000 of new revenue in use tax. Now to go through the funds, and like I said, today's the first day that I actually seen the budget, and we're on schedule because that's where we normally start. And I'd spend the month of July working with Kim and department heads to do the budget. On general government, you can see it went up 5% in the budget projection. 5% of that number is a pretty good sized number. City manager went up 23%. That scared me when I saw that today. Then I realized that we had projected bringing the next city manager on in January. So that's a big increase in the city manager, because you're going to have two double pay for the city manager from January to April if you bring the new city manager on in January. Library is asking for an additional $73,000 or 20% over last year. Police administration 24%, $136,000. Operations $557,000, includes replacing storm sirens, new cars, animal control. I just did the double digit ones. Let's see. Police criminal investigation, $64,000 increase in their budget next year. Police communications, $209,000. And part of that is tied to salary increases that we're proposing to try to recruit communications officers. Right now we have 2, and we got 7 positions. And I'll go through all the efforts that we made. Street department, $117,000. Parks and public grounds, $86,000. So our total expenditures in FY23 is up $2 million over last year. So expenditures would be $20 million if you took the budget presented by all the departments or requested by all the departments. Revenues 19.5. So you would have a deficit of 1.3 million. And so you would start the year with 1.6, almost 1.7, and you'd end the year at $350,000. Right back where we were in 2017. So somebody's going to have to figure out how to reduce that $2 million down to more of a balanced budget situation. Now, general, the Public Works Authority is in pretty good shape. Total expenditures proposed 14.8. Revenues projected at 15.8, so they will have roughly $1 million in revenue more than their planned expenditures, so their fund balance will actually grow. And on the fire department, they are projecting almost a $300,000 increase, and a lot of that is the 3 new positions. And so their revenue 3.4, and so their deficit is 200,000. And like I say, a lot of that is new positions. We talked about multiple things that we might do in the future to increase revenue for the fire department EMTs to help offset some of the expense of providing EMT service out in the county, but those won't happen in FY23, even if we can put them together. It'll be more FY24. So there's a good likelihood that we will have an unbalanced budget relative to this fire department. We may propose bringing those 3 positions on with the concept that we'll have a revenue source to pay for them in FY24, but we may have to take money from other funds or fund balance in FY23 to go ahead and add those, with the expectation we'll have revenue stream in 24 to replace what we borrowed from other funds. With that, I guess discussion, do we want to go back to the old format, or do you all want to have a series of meetings and go through? And Kim has Tenny's budget printed out. We can start tonight, and you all can start going through Tenny's budget line item by line item.
Honestly, I don't know why we'd want to do that.
I don't either.
Be quite frank. My opinion. Gotta find 1.3 million right out of the gate, and that, we're not gonna be able to do that. That's gonna have to be up to staff.
So we'll go back to old format and
Well, I think it's a,
I think so.
I think it's a function of trust. I think it's a function of, I mean, you're the professionals. We are, you know, we're not professionals in the administration, if you will, the operational administration of this city. You are. And that's why I started out my comment with it's a function of trust. Do we trust you and staff to come up with the best way to budget for this city for the next fiscal year? And obviously it's never an easy, you never have enough, have as much money as what everybody needs. We all know that, that's a starting point. Do I think that I know the best way to do that? Hell no. That's why we have professionals. That's why we have you. That's why we have the professional staff
and
here.
that's the way we've done it the last
So
5 years.
that's
Well, that's
just
what we
Getling
need.
speaking.
That's what we need to do. I mean, I don't, maybe I wasn't here, I don't know how we came to be that maybe council wants to take over the budget, because that's
We
insane.
didn't. This whole thing is ridiculous. It's because Don brought up the fact that the fire department came forward 6 months after our talk
Well,
and said they needed 12. They needed 12, but they'd take 9, and they didn't know even where they'd put 12.
Well, but the fire department pitched that to us
Well,
multiple
and
years in the past.
that's all understandable.
Yeah.
This whole suggestion is nonsense. I think it's vindictive and just being crass. No, of course not. That's why we hired you. That's what your job is.
Agreed.
If everybody agrees, then
agree.
We'll go back and we will spend July working
a
with
waste of
Kim
time.
and department heads. We will refine the budget to try to get it as close to a balanced budget. And the 1st of August, we will bring it to you and present a balanced budget.
Jim, I don't know I heard anything from you.
Yeah, you heard from me. I said agreed.
Oh, okay, all right.
So now we can roll
So-
right into the city council meeting as planned.
Not till 7, but.
Doesn't work out well.
Yeah, I think if I'm reading the body language and the language.
You're reading it right.
That we are in unison of, let's go back to the way we've done it.
Okay.
We trust you and the staff to come up with the best solutions for dealing with a challenging budget, but one that's balanced.
And I will tell you, every July, when we start this process, when we get the budgets from all the departments, it's not unusual to see these kind of deficits. And then we have to go through and massage it and decide, okay, this is the revenue, this is where we're at, what can we put off to a future year, how can we adjust? And this year may be some more adjustments. I mean, you know, if you look at the price of fuel, maybe we don't drive as much. Maybe we don't do as many projects, or we have to make some adjustments on how we do those projects, more so than we have in the past. But fuel costs and material costs have substantially went up. We're not going to be able to buy as much as we did last year.
We do know we need more firemen. I
Yes.
mean, we
Oh,
do.
there's no doubt.
There's no, I mean, that's
No doubt.
that should be the priority this year, in my opinion,
Yes.
only. Because they've hit us up year after year after year. There was nothing new there.
And I think they would be, my understanding is if we could add the 3 positions that they've been requested, they think that is a good stride and moves them in the direction that they should move, and they would be comfortable with that. And I think we are going to have some discussions with other groups on how we can maybe get more funding from the part of the county that we serve outside the city limits. As I indicated, that funding probably won't, even if we come up with an arrangement to do that, that funding probably won't come till '24. So in '23, we'll probably add those 3 positions, but we may use reserve funds and some other funds to pay for those 3, with the expectation the revenue stream will be there starting in '24 to pay for those 3 positions.
Well, and the county should know that we just can't leave our,
Correct.
our town
Correct.
without firefighters in it out battling the county
Correct.
fires.
And I think the county has come to that realization. but it's going to take a little time to put some additional funding formats in place. And even if we agree today, it's like everything else. You don't
Takes
start
time.
getting the money
Well,
next week.
yeah, and they have to
It'll be next
massage
year.
their budget too.
Yes.
On understanding that. Well, you know, there's, as there's always the case, there's lots of moving parts here. We've got some proposals that may increase revenues in terms of billing and collections, if you will. We've got this whole budget, national environment going on, that things are getting more costly.
Yes.
And what is the impact of inflation?
Okay.
Lots of things that you and your staff are in a better position to answer than I think this council.
So we will schedule with the department heads and go through the meeting process like we did last year in July, and then we will schedule the first workshop with the council, probably the first meeting in August.
In August.
Several weeks ago, some time ago, you sent an email, I made reference to it, and you and I had a discussion about it. And in there, and I don't remember exact words, but you gave almost a warning of what was ahead, or possibly things with the economy and everything that was going on at the time. And I'll say the same thing now that I said then. I expect you to look ahead, and you're, like I said, that's your position, that's your job to look ahead and say, hey, we can't do this. Or like in my house, I have a budget. This is the way I've always lived, and when things start looking the way they are, I knuckle down. There's just things that automatically don't get done or don't get bought, or they go off the list, or they get, whatever. That's just what everybody does, right?
Yeah.
And these times, we don't know what's ahead. This is not over yet. This inflation is not, this seems to be no light at the end of the tunnel as yet, so that's
And
things
I
we can't
think-
predict.
I
But
think there's things that we will have to do. We'll have to realize that fuel is going to be substantially higher. So when we look at fuel for patrol and police, we look at fuel for some of the other operations, we're going to have to make some decisions on, do we patrol less? Are there some projects that we don't do? Do we mow instead of 4 times, do it 3 times? And some of those kind of things.
Right.
We may have to make some of those decisions. And we can adjust for the knowns, but we can't adjust for unknowing things. Like if all of a sudden we do go into a recession, which I hope we don't, but there's some people forecasting that, some no.
Yeah.
But I think we can budget for the things that we know. I don't think we want to react to the unknowns at this point. And the reason that we can do that is because over the last 5 years, we have built up a substantial reserve in public works, in the general fund, and in our rainy day funds, our 2 stabilization funds, that say if we get mid-year and a recession hits, we do have resources to shade that valley, shade the peak and fill the valleys. So we don't have to, if we were to go in recession, we wouldn't have to make a knee-jerk reaction. We could have resources to continue to operate while we see what actually is happening and then make the adjustment. So we've got some cushioning that we don't have to react to people saying we're going into recession, because it may not happen.
And those are the exact words I would expect to hear out of a city manager.
That's why we hired you.
That's exactly right.
That's why we hired you.
I depend and trust in you to monitor that and say, okay, now's the time for a knee-jerk reaction or something, if necessary, because this is above me. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not a finance guru. I didn't do very well in math in school. But
Ken's an expert.
I depend on the brains to tell me, you know?
Can we as a municipality buy fuel in bulk at a reduced cost? Kind of like
Sure
the
we
county
do,
does
don't we?
in
I'm not
I mean, don't you get
aware
some discount, or
of
do you?
municipalities that can do that.
Do you not store?
We used to when we had our underground tanks, but then the Corporation Commission and all the things that came along with those underground tanks were just about balanced everything out to where
That
we hit
makes
with the
sense.
fuel man and everything pretty well.
I understand
balanced out. We don't have the.
Pulled a bunch of those tanks.
EPA crap.
I'm just saying, since now gas is $5 a gallon, basically.
Yeah.
When I go to my meetings.
Yeah, you know, if you were a power company and you deal with natural gas, sometimes you can
2,000.
buy it at a locked-in price, but not gasoline. So,
Because we're double line. Well, anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
trust it.
So, you and your staff are given direction from the council
Yes, and we'll see you in
to go and bring back a balanced budget as best you can. Present that to the council in August,
the first meeting in August.
and then we will move from there.
All I ask is, can we go from $1 to $2 a year?
I think it's not in the budget.
That's not in the budget,
Not in the
Tracy.
We're still working on health insurance.
That's part of the cut.
Oh, wait.
Okay.
Here we go.
I appreciate
All right,
that.
any other-
Appreciate the thought.
Any other questions of Leroy or staff? Comments? Hearing none, you have your your orders, and that being the last item on our agenda for this workshop, we're adjourned. City council will start at 7 o'clock. Actually, it's the
TPWA.
Public Works Authority meeting, starts at 7.